Apple has a wide variety of products, ranging from desktop computers, laptops, phones, tablets, TVs and watches, and each of these products have different ways to enable you to interact with its user interface. So, have you ever wondered how you would create an application that could run on every device in the Apple product range, without having to reconfigure your application to the characteristics of every specific platform? Well, in this video, you will learn about SwiftUI and its ability to unify the development of applications so that you can create applications for all of Apple's devices in one place. More specifically, you will learn what motivated Apple to develop SwiftUI as the new paradigm for modern app development, the difference between input methods and their methodologies for development, how using SwiftUI makes development for cross-platform applications faster and easier, and the internal technologies Apple uses for the development of user interfaces on its diverse platforms. Simply put, SwiftUI is a modern way to create user interfaces or UIs for any application that is intended to work on any Apple platform. Every Apple platform, iPhone, iPad, Mac, Apple Watch, or Apple TV, differs in the way that it works. Mac computers and laptops, for example, use a keyboard, mouse, and trackpads as input devices. iPhones, iPads, and Apple Watches use touchscreen and buttons as input devices, and Apple TV uses touchscreen and feedback from a remote control. These different input methods, with the added differences in screen sizes, make every device unique. On touchscreen devices, for example, buttons must be larger to allow interaction via the human finger. So, creating an application that runs on every platform is a challenge, as you must adapt the UIs to the characteristics of every specific platform. To make things simple, Apple created 3 sets of graphical UI toolkits: Application Kit, or App Kit for short, used on Mac computers; UI Kit, used on iPhone, iPad, and Apple TV; and Watch Kit, used on Apple Watch. These toolkits contained all kinds of controls such as buttons, sliders, and menus, adapted for the specific platform. The problem with this approach is that the application should be designed in terms of interface to the platform it was intended to run, not to mention the fact that some controls that existed for macOS were missing for iOS. Thus, adapting an existing application from one platform to another required a lot of work, discouraging developers from creating multi-platform applications. Furthermore, UIKit came from an adaptation of AppKit, which was a very old graphical UI toolkit designed in the late 1980s, carrying a lot of archaic and incomplete code that was not serving the needs of modern interfaces anymore. To solve that problem, Apple launched SwiftUI in 2019. From that point on, instead of creating a lot of different buttons for each different platform, just one button needs to be created and SwiftUI figures out how it will be displayed on every different platform. Here's an example of the code required to create a button for a Mac computer using AppKit, and here's the code required to create the same button in UIKit. It's important to note that Apple Watch provides no way to create interface elements using code in UIKit. Now you'll notice that the code required to create a button using SwiftUI is much simpler. Plus, the beauty here is that this concise piece of code caters to all platforms. The ability to design a button for all platforms using SwiftUI is amazing. It also shows how condensed SwiftUI is compared to UIKit and AppKit, and how fast developers can create multi-platform code. There are still many differences between UI controls across Apple platforms, but it's now SwiftUI that decides how these elements will be displayed. Some of the main benefits of SwiftUI are automatic support for dynamic texts that adjust automatically depending on the context, accessibility and localization, to make apps accessible for people with disabilities, and to create versions for different languages, and the ability to easily create light and dark themes for UIs. Another challenging aspect of designing an app is synchronizing the application's state and its UI, but this is something you will learn about later in this course. And that concludes your introduction to SwiftUI. In this video, you learned about SwiftUI and its ability to enable developers to create applications for all of Apple's devices in one place. You also discovered what motivated Apple to develop SwiftUI, the difference between input methods and their methodologies for development, how SwiftUI makes cross-platform app development faster and easier, and the internal technologies Apple used for the development of UIs on its diverse platforms.